just to be aware, I am recording this. The reason I'm going to record it is if anybody happened to miss this meeting, I'm going to throw it up on YouTube after. So I just hit record. I'm going to throw this up on YouTube after, just in case somebody wants to see the meeting or whatever, because they missed it. So it is recording, just so you know. If you have an issue with that, you can obviously turn off your camera. You can mute yourself. That's no issue at all. But I want to start. Obviously, I'm Mr. Moody. I am the AD here at Yorktown Middle School. I also teach BIT. I used to teach language arts. Loved it, but can't teach language arts and do athletic director stuff. It's just way too much. So I'm glad you all could be here. I just kind of wanted to get everybody together. Obviously, with the way things are now, they want us to do more Zoom meetings. Just so we're not in larger crowds, just a safety measure. Personally, I kind of like this. It's not too bad for me. I know some people don't like doing this, but it is really nice that we can record it and put it up, so you can go rewatch it if you need to, or other people that missed it can see it. So first, I'm going to start with the concussion protocol. So this year's going to be a little different. With cross country, the concussion protocol hasn't been a very big deal. They didn't do impact testing before. We did impact testing last? No, we didn't do impact testing. You were the one sport that we didn't. So probably should have, but we've actually gotten rid of impact testing this year. It wasn't used by many of the doctors the kids went to. They didn't use our tests. They kind of went by their own protocols that they use. So we have decided to not impact test, and we're just going to use Brooke Wagner, who is our corporation nurse now, for any and all issues when it comes to concussions or just any kind of issue a student may have. Obviously, taking them to your personal doctor is always an option, and probably the better option, because they have every bit of information that they might need. But Brooke Wagner will be working a lot with me when it comes to the athletes. Anytime a student has any type of concussion-like symptoms, if they fell while they're running, bump their head a little bit, they feel dizzy, feel nauseous, anything resembling concussion-like symptoms, and both coaches have been trained in these things, we're going to take them out of whatever they're doing. It's not something that we mess around with. Especially with the science that's come out recently with concussions. It's just not worth it. It's not worth the long-term effects and some of the things that can happen. So we're going to always err on the side of caution when it comes to concussions. With grades, Yorktown, we expect our athletes to be students first. I personally do the grade checks on all athletes at quarter and midterm. So I'll check all grades of all athletes. If any athlete has 2 F grades, they are immediately ineligible for athletics. This means they are not allowed to participate in any contests and may not travel with the team, but they're allowed to practice because we think it's good for them to be around the team, to have that motivation to succeed in the classroom. I will then recheck the grades in 2 weeks and determine if athletes can regain eligibility. So from the moment I check them, if they are ineligible, I wait 2 weeks and we'll check them after. To maintain the integrity of grade checks, because this does happen, I do not allow kids to immediately fix their grade if they're ineligible at the quarter or the midterm. This puts a lot of stress on our teachers, especially because students will find out that they're failing, which they should have known beforehand, and they will go immediately to a teacher that they're failing for and say, I have these 17 assignments to turn in. Can you grade them right now? And the answer is no. It's not going to happen. We can't expect teachers to do that. So I do want them to go to those teachers and turn in those 17 assignments, but they need to know that they can't fix it right away. It's something they should have fixed before. And so we're going to try to instill that by making sure that they sit out those 2 weeks, make sure that they get their grades better. And like I said, the goal is for the kids to maintain good grades, not to slip by when the grades are checked. So if a student is ineligible, they will be ineligible for 2 weeks, and hopefully will be good when we recheck in the 2 weeks. So that's grades. When it comes to playing time, that's not really relevant for you guys because all of the athletes will typically run. We don't have any, Coach Harp, are there varsity runs, maybe like county?
Well, yes. And towards the end, it's county and conference that have it kind of separated into varsity reserve. So
Yeah.
yes, but it's only like those 2 meets.
Yeah, and those are always determined on personal best times.
Yes.
So, that's not really anything to talk about. And they all get to run at the meets anyways in the reserve races. So that shouldn't be an issue at all. When we talk conduct, we stress to our athletes that when they put on their uniforms, they're representing Yorktown. It's a really big deal for us as a school and as a program. They should take pride in that and be exemplary competitors as well as show exemplary sportsmanship. The hope is that our kids can help to model this, the hope is that our adults can help to model this behavior. So please remember that our kids are always trying their best. The goal of the fan should always be to cheer on all kids who are competing. I don't know that this is an issue with this group in particular, but it's just always nice to cheer on not just your kid, but the other kids, right? Like we never want to boo anybody. We never want to show poor sportsmanship. And I don't think that we will, but in the same vein, please remember that all officials are community members who are deeply invested in the growth of our children. We do pay them, but it isn't a ridiculous amount. They're officiating because they enjoy it and should be treated with respect. So with all officials, just make sure that you're treating them with respect. And I don't think that'll be an issue. Now on to some COVID changes. So we obviously have some things that we've changed because of COVID-19. The first one is that we have guidelines in place from the DOE that are expected to be followed. So a lot of the mask mandates, a lot of the no water things that we've had to do at sports, those were not decided by myself or Paul Heidenreich. Those were things that came from the Department of Education. They're very strict guidelines that we have to follow, and they are checking up on things like that. So that we have those things. Things such as masks and sanitizer rules are there to protect the athletes and coaches and must be followed. Your athletic department coaches have many new procedures in place as well that that you may not even be aware of. And we need to help to encourage and model these guidelines. It's awful that it's already happened, but we have examples in our county of the procedures and what can happen if they're not followed closely enough. If you look at Delta right now, they are struggling. The entire football team is quarantined for 2 weeks. Not that they didn't follow the guidelines, but the things that we're doing can be the difference between us being quarantined for 2 weeks or finishing out the season. It's just the way it is now. One thing that you guys always need to be sure is that your athletes have water at events and practices. We cannot hand those things out. It's not something we're allowed to do anymore. So if you can always make sure they have extra water, they're able to refill their water before they go to practice at the refilling stations we have at school, but they need to have their own water container every day because we just can't do anything but like providing the water. So we will have many procedures set in place for tracing purposes this year. So the contact tracing is a big one. Like they have seating charts in classrooms, we're going to have seating charts on the buses now. Coaches will be responsible for those and we'll be tracking them. So we'd like for you to instill in the athletes that when they're on the bus, like the guidelines are sit where you're supposed to, face forward, masks on, can't eat on the bus, can't do things like that anymore, just to be safe. So fan attendance doesn't really affect any of you because we can't really kick people out of a public park. But we're supposed to have only 250 people at events. And so this doesn't really affect cross country, but if you're going to football games this year or even some volleyball games, know that if you show up at the door, there's a good possibility you're not going to get in because we are going to do voucher programs for a lot of our sports. So that's something to consider. We want to make sure parents have the ability to go to these sports instead of, just regular fans, especially parents that may have children with diabetes or something and they just need to be there just in case. we want to make sure they're able to get in, watch their kids rather than, a family of 5. So that just for some other sports, we're not considering vouchers at all for cross country, but it is something to consider, especially when we do things later in the year. And I haven't heard anything about like the Selma Invite, which typically is a very large gathering. I don't know how those are handled yet. I think some ADs are still thinking through some of those things. So, yeah. So we're also not doing all sports passes this year. We're afraid, first and foremost, that something like last year could happen, and we wouldn't want to have people pay for all sports passes and then not have a spring, winter season, something like that. So. Concessions, which don't really affect you, but they're still kind of a fluid situation at other sports. We're not entirely sure how we're going to handle that yet, but we're thinking through it. Seating, once again, doesn't really affect you guys, but we're going to definitely try to socially distance as much as we can at events. Masks, obviously, are a requirement. I know that you go some places and you see people that are outside and they don't wear masks, but it's kind of a mandate. We would like for you to wear them. I'm not going to go around and police people to wear masks. I don't have time to do that, and I just don't really want to. But we would like for you to wear masks. It's a good example for the kids because we are requiring them to wear masks when they aren't doing something strenuous. So if they are off on the sidelines, standing around, not running, they should be wearing a mask. We've provided things for them to put masks in, little baggies with their names on them, to make sure they don't just throw them on the ground and get them dirty. So it's just a good example to set, and we would prefer that, but obviously it's tough to police that. So aside from that, that's about all I have when it comes to the things that I needed to talk about today. If you want to, and you have any specific questions for me before Coach Harp talks, you can unmute yourself and ask me. Otherwise, I'll just give a couple seconds. If nobody has anything, we'll move to Coach Harp.
Yeah, Mr. Moody. Sorry,
Yes.
one question really quick. First off, thanks to you and Coach Hart for everything you're doing. I know it's a difficult situation, but you guys are managing it awesome. We really appreciate that. You said no food on the buses. So if we do send like a snack with our kid to like an away meet, would there be some places they could eat that snack? I mean, if they're going to keep it off the bus.
The idea is that they would probably want to eat that snack before they leave on the bus or when they get to the event. The bus is basically just a big sardine can. So it's tough to really make sure, because to eat, they have to take the masks off, and then we have everything going in the air. Presumably it's probably humid outside and hot because it's still pretty hot outside. So it's just, they want them to have the masks on. And so the eating thing has been discouraged for sure. But yeah, they should have time before, or definitely when they get off the bus. Coach Hart.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anyone else? One other thing that you might want to consider, we also are going through construction. For everybody here knows that we are going through construction. Spaces are limited occasionally. Coach Harp has done things in the past where she's been inside on days when it is not great weather. That's not a possibility this year. It's just, if it's bad weather, she won't practice because it's just too much to really, they can't really run around the hallways because that's not exactly the most safe thing at the moment. It just can't happen. So, all right. If nobody else has any questions, I'll hand it over to Coach Hart.
We good?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll start out again as well saying thank you to everyone, and the masking up to and from the building. Amazing kids, like always. They're Yorktown Tigers. Masking up, going to the park, from the park. Everybody's nice and clean, keeping everything set. Great job on pickups. Great job. Thank you. I appreciate that. Everybody has a family outside, a work and sports family. So I appreciate that. Doing a great job. Let me mark your calendar for seeing our schedule, and it is the first meet against Northside has been rescheduled for September 1st. So the first meet at Northside on the 19th has been rescheduled for September 1st. And it shows on our schedule that our big Marion Invite, which is always Labor Day weekend, and we usually lose a lot of kids because that's like the last family hurrah of the season. It's been canceled. It was getting a little too big for us. So we're going to look into other things. Like Mr. Moody said, with cancellations, if we have to cancel, we try to call it early, at least by lunch, where the kids have access to their phones and can make those arrangements. But always keep in mind, you should have a second plan. If this were to happen that we cancel practice for whatever reason, you need to have a second option of who's going to pick you up or where do you go and things like that. By lunchtime, I said, they call. If you don't have a cell phone, then more than likely let your teacher know, whoever is in your room, and then you'll go to the office, or Mr. Dudley or Mr. Strong, who's ever on duty at lunch, can send you to the office and we can make a phone call. A lot of times we email blast the parents of the cross-country kids. Pretty good measure. We have about 33 on average this year on our roster. So it's a good group. Our home meets, we ask for volunteers from parents, in which we need like a starter it looks like an old adding machine. You start it, every student comes in, hit the button, it times them. The popsicle sticks, which are handed out, a volunteer there, the mile marker, and just kind of directing traffic so we can keep our student athletes safe. So to and from the park, people are still coming in because it's a public place that we ask for volunteers. On meet days, there's enough time that parents will start coming in. So if you would like to and help us out and look at your calendar and give us a day that you know you can guarantee that you're going to be there, maybe you could come and help us out. Like Coach Turner said about food. So we'll have at least the minimum of like 20 minutes before a bus arrives, and I can separate the student athletes that will eat away from each other, where we have to put our stuff because of the other sports and stuff going on in our building. You'll have time for a snack, and that's okay. Every year I get asked if they can walk over to Pizza King and eat, and the answer is no. It's not safe to cross the street by yourself, and coach can't go with you. So that's not an option. So pack extra things, and definitely for the most part, the kids are drinking a lot of water and they're filling their water bottles, and I allow them the extra time, checking everybody in. I'm taking attendance. Coach Wright, my assistant, is taking attendance every day. So we're like making sure who's there and who's missing, things like that. Just in case anything happens, we are keeping a roster like we always have. There's no penalty when you have a big project, and I want to try to stress that to the student athletes. It's okay to miss a practice if you can maybe run some miles later, some sprints on the street, depending on where you live. But if you have a big project, go home and do your homework. Don't put it off till later. Just let me know that you have a big project, so you're going to go home, do your project, because you are a student before you were an athlete. That's going to take you somewhere in life. So that's really important. So take care of the good grades, so Mr. Moody doesn't have to come see you and seek you out, which I never have a problem. So that's amazing. We have like the best cross team. Let's see what else I have.
You want me to go ahead and share my screen? I've got the thing up right now, the schedule, if you want to look at it.
Sure.
Okay.
That'd be great. So we're going to pass out uniforms. Our uniforms, the inside tag that like comes on clothes and stuff, please don't cut it out. Sometimes kids will get agitated with it. Have them come talk to me. I'll try to swap them out with another uniform or something. At this age, I make sure that girls are covered, boys are covered. If you go home and you try on your uniform and you don't feel comfortable in it, then bring it back. We'll put you in another size, but everything at this point is covered. No worries, no bleach. Just please take care of your uniforms. Be responsible for them. That's what I tell my athletes. So no trading, things like that. Please don't leave them behind. If you do, my athletes know you get wall sits. You have to pick up after yourself. Let's see. Mr. Moody, you talked about bringing your own water. We fill those up, and then we'll have time to have a snack because they'll be hungry after school. I think that's about it, guys. Do you have any questions?
What about for like virtual families? What time do we need to have our students there to the school for away meets?
Well, we will be walking over to Morrows Meadows. Very good point. Good question. I'm looking at the schedule here myself. So if it's a usual time, practice 3:30,
Okay.
because our athletes come out of their classrooms and they change and stuff. So I would say at least 3 so they can have some camaraderie beforehand.
Okay.
Yeah, there aren't many meets here where your athletes are really going to go home.
No, I don't really want them to go home because some of them can't get back.
Maybe Burris, but if you stay after, that's totally fine. But the other ones, you wouldn't even want them to go home. 4:30, that's
No.
No.
And we did talk about how August 19th, that is canceled, sort of. We just moved north side to the Shenandoah meet, so they were not able to make the 19th work. So.
And so if there's changes to like a schedule or a meet gets canceled last minute, will that be posted on Twitter so that the virtual families can get notified because students won't be at school to hear that stuff?
Yeah, if you don't follow me on Twitter, you should, because I put everything up there as quickly as possible. Yeah.
YMS Athletics.
YMS Athletics. Thank
Yep, and then I'll retweet it, and then Coach Wright retweets it.
Yeah.
And it just spreads from there.
I also, if you go to the corporation website, yorktown.k12.in.us, and then you go to the middle school and you go to athletics, there's a From the Athletic Director page. I post things there regularly, so that's another place. But Twitter's going to be kind of your catch-all. If there is something I put up on the From the Athletic Director page, I typically put a link on Twitter. So, and I did say this before, but this is the schedule right now. So there's no telling what could happen from now until then. If you have situations like they did at Delta, it's just kind of a fluid situation. So we're hoping everything goes smoothly, but that is what it is now. So. All right. Is that all you have, Coach Harp?
I think so, unless anyone else has any more questions.
Are there any meets that have not allowed fans yet? Because I know the high school, there was a couple meets that no fans were allowed. Have you heard of anything like that yet?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from any athletic directors. I took us out of our biggest one, the Marion Cross Country Invitational. That would have been the one that probably would have been most likely, along with the HHC meet and obviously the county meet. The rest of this one's a possibility, but that's on Burris. So if the AD at Burris lets me know ahead of time, I'll shoot that out to you. But I don't foresee it on anything aside from really these meets right here. Maybe Selma Invite. How many teams are typically at Selma for the Invite? 7. So it's questionable there. So the way the Delaware County Health Board wants us to handle it is it's 250 people at a venue. And that includes players also, players and officials. It's not like, oh, the people in the stands are a different venue. It doesn't work that way. So there are
We're still
ways
up in the air.
those things. Yeah. So we're still trying to figure some of those things out, but at this point we're trying to work around making sure we're at the 250 mark for most of the things that we do, so we don't have to go through any waiver process or something like that, because those probably aren't going to go through for the most part. We do have the ability to go and talk to the health department and try to do a waiver program, but I don't anticipate them changing any of that. So. All right. If there are no other questions, appreciate all of you coming to the Zoom meeting tonight. If you ever have any questions, obviously you can talk to Coach Harp, Coach Wright, or obviously you can talk to myself. Emailing me is the best way to get a hold of me, especially right now. If you've called me, I apologize. I don't have a phone in my room, so I've received no messages last week. So somebody might be really mad at me in here. I haven't gotten your message. I apologize. But emailing me, I'll get right back to you for sure. So,
Mr. Moody, let me introduce my assistant, Coach Wright. Coach Wright,
Yes, ma'am.
say hello. Join the team.
Hello.
Tell him something about you.
Can you hear me? I am
Yes.
out in the no, I apologize. Hi guys, I am Coach Wright. First season with Coach Harp. We have been together 5 years, Coach, as my assistant, and now I get to be her assistant. Special ed teacher at YM, and just recently moved to YE for functional academics. So I am 3 through 8 functional. I'm now housed at the elementary, so I'm excited for this season.
all right. Okay, so if nobody has anything else, thank you for coming. And like I
Thank
said,
you.
contact us if you need us.
Thank you.
Stay on there, Coach Wright.